I'm going to try and just continue what we've been doing. Go ahead and do a very short recap, and then we will get into it. I'll do a little intro. Okay, good, my timer's going. So what we've been doing is going into the ancient Hebrew language, what's called the ancient Hebrew language. Won't get into all that, it's another subject itself. And trying to understand the roots of all the words that are used in the Bible, that are tied to our languages today, that, you know, we read over and over and just may not quite understand. So far we went through Aleph Babe, right? And then I'm just going to do my, crummy looking. That's why I pass out the chart. That way nobody has to rely on my handwriting. Because it is definitely not good. Maybe before I went into IT, but after that, it definitely fell off.
Done.
Oh, good. I have extra charts.
How are you doing?
Yeah. No problem. And then we have a couple more letters we'll end up doing today.
All right, it's good. We got extra copies.
Yeah, I sure do.
This
I'll
is
be glad to see
the
'em out.
Paleo, the original Hebrew alphabet.
Oh, nice.
All right, and then let's
Symbolic.
go ahead and we'll do
Symbolic. You got another one up here?
yes, I have a whole.
Stack them.
I thought I left them over there.
Here.
Oh,
Yeah.
Salamed. And then I want to get through.
Pretty familiar with
You know, I drew a few, but I figured I'm going to cover a few more than we have been today, possibly. Okay. So, going through these, we went through Aleph, Bet, and I'm just going to say probably modern names of these. So Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Het. This is what we've covered so far. To brush over these, this was the bull. It could represent power, one who bears a yoke. The home, the Beit, Bait, even in Hebrew still, right? Gimel, the foot in movement, moving, the root of that word. Dam, being moving to the water, animals gathering at the water. Dalet, another way that could be drawn is like this. This is the doorway of a tent. It can represent moving, the going in and out of. This is a person, right? Calls attention. A vav is basically like a peg, a type of peg. Zion is a gardening tool, and the het represents the wall of the home, or just a wall in general. Now, Zion, het. This next letter is called, in modern Hebrew, tet, just like a T sound. And this next one is yud. Now, which is right, like a Y sound. This here, tet. This is a basket, a container, a woven container. If you look inside of baskets, especially old handmade ones, you'll see just crisscrossing fibers inside, things like that. And then after we get past these, I'll do what I normally do, which is just go into root words. The yad being the hand, right? We can all see that's an arm, right? And the hand extended. It's more the arm and the hand together. This would be kaf, which ended up making it as like a modern C and a modern K, along with other ones. And this is actually the open hand, open palms. Okay. We have lamed, lam, and this is drawn various ways throughout. Modern Hebrew looks like this. This is a staff. Normally represented Old Word as a downward, because to teach and instruct you would either point or sometimes strike, right? Mem, this one we went over quite a few times, and Dr. Mystic has mentioned it as well. This is water, where letter M comes from. But we could, again, there's a lot of changing in things and a lot more discussion that could go into these root systems, so we're just briefing over this, okay? There's a lot more history that goes into these letters. And this, the seed coming out of the pod, is a nun, so like an N in modern Hebrew. So, I think it's always fun to grab what we have, our parents and children, okay? And just like our families stem and root out, and there's cousins and step-cousins and, all this fun stuff, the language works the same way. So you'll either have one or two letters that then stem into a whole root system and tree system. Okay? Now, some of those fun roots. The root for the word that is translated unclean is the symbol of basket. And water. Tom. This is the root for what we translate as unclean. But if you look, this is actually an action. Because what do you need to clean yourself? A container of water. You have to wash yourself to wash dirt off. So this is the root of the word that we will translate as unclean, but it's actually an action on how to clean yourself, which is really interesting.
Yeah, the Hebrew word is tameh.
And
I think it usually has an olive on the end.
Yeah, probably because you're heavily. Probably, I believe it does. And you can think of that. You're very. This is also used as an exaggerator. Kind of like if you think of vary or strength, you add to something, you stack it. So if you need a lot of water to clean yourself, you're unclean. But again, these are when I talk about this is the root of the child that he mentioned, which would be the word that comes under. One neat other root, right, coming from tet, is tet nun. This one is a little bit more abstract, I feel like, unless you were using it. The seed represents the continuation of any object or product. So the continuation of a basket, you think, wow, what could that be? A continuation of a woven object would be a lengthening or a largening of that woven object. That could be a tapestry. It could be different types of containers. It can be multiple woven items, right? And what's neat is you look at one of the children under this parent. It doesn't really matter. This is how it changes. You look at the children, which just looking at it, I'd almost pronounce like that Star Wars thing. You almost go like Tauntaun. But it's right, Tauntaun. And what that is a palm leaf. All right, why would it be a palm? Because that's what the basket's made of, right? The children will relate to the parent in ways that you don't think of unless you use these in daily life and action. Wow. It's kind of wild how it continues to work. Jumping to another root. This itself, we said that this is the hand, yod. We're going to move on. Yod, the arm and hand. What's neat about this is, just like I said gum, whenever I said that letter, I said it itself is a root, meaning gathering at the water. With yod, it itself is a root, meaning, and you can either use the door, they have different ways to represent the doorway of the tent. I'm going to use the one that looks like a D, because why not? So yod. The moving of the hand. When people move their hand, there's so many words that are tied to this root. It can be used to do what? What can you do with your hands? You can build, you can destroy, you can protect, you can harm. There are tons of root words that come off of this, including it'd be neat to do an interesting study on the one man who moves his hands, or the moving, which you can pronounce as Yehud. No. That's part of the root of what will come with Yehuda when we study that later. It's very, very interesting.
All you have to do, Yehuda, you already have the letters.
Yeah.
You have Yud, Hey, Vav, Dalet, Hey.
And then, of course, or not of course, but I've noticed that whenever this Vav is used in words, within them, not as the root, but within them, it tends to, because this stakes things down, it puts things into action. And you'll notice when you conjugate different verbs and things that the O sound will get thrown in as they go into action. It's really, really interesting.
Right.
Like with the pu'al, you have different forms, and the words and sounds of the forms reveal the letters that are added to the word. So, something I thought was interesting, still with yod, another root. So this was a parent. We're going to talk about another parent. Yud. Mem. So moving the water, working water. What's really interesting is that this is actually the root, if you look at yum, and they have the C, right? That's one of the children that come from it, is C, which also can be
Translated as a lake also.
west, a lake.
West.
Yep. I was going to say this root is springs. It is all these different things. Like a spring is just one more mem added on, and that's the word for spring. What's interesting though is that this is the root word for terror. You think, why would it be terrifying? Okay.
Well, maybe the flood
Why?
or something.
And you think that water, the moving of water, working water, especially if it's very strong working water, like the ocean, the torrents of the ocean, the depths, I mean, think about especially people going to the edge and looking out over the ocean, and you go, wow, it's huge, it's beautiful, it's terrifying. Right? In its majesty and power, it is terrifying. It can crush you. The storms, the torrents, even the shore, the tidal line, right? The surf, right? That busts up and breaks it. And so it's still tied to the root of terror, which is interesting. So
Right.
I wouldn't have thought that for people that will end up being so seafaring, but whatever. Very interesting, right? So, but for the majority of people, it wouldn't.
Nay, more so than most would have a respect for it.
Right. I mean, he's right about that.
You would have to know, yeah, you'd have to know.
People that go on these, I mean, look at archaeologists are finding all kinds of shipwrecks on the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. So yeah, if you're doing that seafaring, you know how, well, I mean, it's in the Bible. I mean,
Right.
Paul, lost at sea. That Paul's ship sank, right? So they talk about that.
And even Jesus being on the sea, right?
Yeah,
and
he has
being
mastery.
terrified.
He has mastery over that.
He has
right?
mastery over it.
Well, he used
And that's
water to cut
and
through
this is the
rocks.
root of terror. Jesus
Saddam,
has the mastery
water
of the
cuts through
root.
stone.
Can, right?
Yeah.
How powerful water is. But you know that with all that, they would know, they would understand how dangerous the sea could be. But the Holy Land's not really prone to flooding. You know
No, the
that?
Nile.
Egypt is, but not the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't have floods in Jerusalem or.
I mean, not that they're mad
Maybe
about
around the
any
Jordan
water
River
they
or
get.
something.
They're happy about for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they were like
Kinda arid
completely
around.
on the
It's lush up in Galilee generally. They have droughts there.
And their fruit, I hear their fruit selection is just massive. I mean, just beautiful. Man. This is something I thought was really interesting. We're going to move to another root. The open hand, the bent palm. This can represent a number of things. The bent palm can represent the surrendering of your will, things like that. It's used in all sorts of interesting ways. Here I think they have it. Does he write any more than bent palm, open palm, bend, open, allow, tame? That was one I thought was interesting. It ties into taming animals. But let me go. Did I get that? The next root I want to hit parent, just based off of Kaufman. That way we can just move and hit a parent off each one. This one is really cool to me. So if we have, I was going to do it right. It's like right, like I'm dyslexic sometimes. So this, Kaf Bet. Now hands can do so many things, as we talked about with love and the movement of the hand. But when it's used from this parent, it can mean a covering, to cover the home. And what covered the home, at least in the time when this was written and this definition was really defined, a lot of times would be hair on the top of these tents. And many, many times it would be a dark or even black goat hair. Okay? The way this works is when these tents are covered with this hair, when the hair gets wet, it swells, it's right back and tight, and will stop the rain, sealing off. When it dries, it, comes as hair does, and it will let little, if you're inside laying on it and you're looking up, it won't be pitch black anymore. It'll look like. All right, so if we have the child that comes from this.
I just gotta have a picture of this. Are they taking that hair and weaving it into a cloth or something?
So the Bedouin tents, the way that they work, because we can look at theirs, and they live a lot like the time of the people, if I recall, around Abraham. And the way it is like when it describes the tabernacle and how you like layer it on for the, it's much like that. I wish I had actually I had a photo that had the breakdown of because I'm very ignorant. I don't think I could, I would have to get that and show you directly. Because I'm just real semantical like that. I'd hate to tell you something.
I was reading this, you can see here on the wall, there's the tabernacle. Look at that. And how it's a rectangular, it's not a cube because it's rectangular, but it's squared like that. And it does have a cover. The building is rectangular, right? But yeah, they would put, some people are trying to argue, did the tent just have a peak so the rain would flow down on it? But you can see in that picture, it does have, there's arguments about that, but yeah, that you have the structure itself, which they put together panels, right? They put them together. But yeah, they did have, because even it rains in the desert from time to time.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was in Iraq, there's a rainy season when I was there, the first deployment. So it doesn't hardly rain in Egypt. But yeah, they're going to need, even in the desert, sometimes it rains, so you need to have, coverage for that.
I actually randomly have full signal in this spot. Never happens in this church. So I'm going to look up tent, the ancient tent roof here, and we'll bring up
You're probably right about that. I mean, these Bedouins, once they...
What were houses like in Israel?
It's like you're a nomad.
This is probably a decent representative.
Yeah, you see that. Those are the typical Bedouin tent.
It's just like when you think of a what
They
we
got-
call a teepee.
they got some
with Native Americans, right? You have a
Right.
big thing of cloth. You have your post.
So yeah, the thing to remember is with these, how far back does those type of tents go? Probably 5,000 years.
I mean,
Right.
people, as long as people, gosh.
Right.
that'd
Once
be-
once they did it, it's efficient, right?
Yeah.
You're a nomad. Whatever kind of nomad you are, sometimes you have to break camp, move camp, set
Yeah.
camp up
And
again.
I think actually that should be a black cover on the outside there of the tabernacle, because I've seen pictures and it's the very last cover is that goat hair and it's black.
Right, and they
And,
say
and so it should be
Seals
black
it.
over there.
Yeah.
Seals it.
porpoises.
Oh yeah, I've heard
Different
that. They're
types
like,
of-
they use
Wow.
sea. I'm
Different
like,
types of,
oh.
Badger skin, goat
They-
skin.
Yeah, it's whatever was common to them. I think
Whatever they
that's what
had.
a lot of people miss, is they
That was
think
the whole
these were
thing.
objects that were uncommon. It was the most common object to them. That's why God let them use it. It wasn't uncommon. Like, why'd they work with gold? Because gold's easy to work with. You ever worked with gold? You ever hit it with a hammer? You don't have to have heat to make it valuable. It's easy to work with. I think people want it to be grandiose and this.
That's what made it valuable. You could make fancy stuff with it.
It's pure. It's
That's
that,
what
and then
originally
later they said it
made
represents.
gold
We could get into all the
something that
occultic,
people
but I'm
wanted.
not going to get into
I
all
think,
that fun
if
stuff.
I remember, the Ark of the Covenant, there's two ways to make a golden statue, right? Molten, which is forbidden for some reason, like the
casting.
molten cast.
I wonder
The
if it's
molten
because it's
cast.
solid gold. I wonder if it's just a waste of
The
time.
cherubim were beaten.
Yeah.
They're
Well, they're spread thin. What's interesting is, man, there's a whole thing over that I've been kind of like saving to talk about. But over the ark itself, when it's made of this dark acacia wood, which is common to the area, black acacia, and when you take gold and you stretch it extremely thin, and you cover that object becomes a mirror. So remember what God would have them do? You would stand in front of it. When people, there's a shift, a mental shift when humans start using mirrors. That's not like a common thing. You just see it blurry. You have a clear self-image of yourself. And then he would have a clear image of the written rules of righteousness. And that wouldn't change. And you'd be looking at yourself, and then everything is written backwards, a signet. So when you're looking in the mirror, you're reflected, it's not backwards anymore. When you lean on the ground, you come up, it's written in the earth, it's not backwards anymore. Right.
And think about how, you're right, I mean,
good.
before they
That's what they
invented
did, right.
mirrors, the only place you could see reflection is in water,
Some water.
right?
These swimming pool, they would have these in, they'd do the water be real still, nobody would touch it, and they'd lean over it, and then God gives you a mirror.
Beaten
You
and
can see
polished
yourself.
metal was the next.
Yeah, right, and that, I think a lot of the brass in the temple, women gave their mirrors to make
Yeah.
the,
The brazen labor.
right.
And just to move one more about that is that NASA helmets are stretched with a fine layer of gold. And when you look at it, you can see, oh, that's, you see the reflection. So that's over a dark surface. Now, how's a
Cool.
mirror made? A fine layer of silver over a black surface. So that is a mirror.
Right.
And so moving, sorry, I got a little sidetracked. So we're back on this, and the goat hair. That's where we're at. The tip,
Goat
goat
hair.
hair. I got a timer here. I got a couple
Yeah.
more minutes.
But I'm not,
One of the
So
no,
much
I'm
for
just
us.
I was just so this being the parent, right? And we said the parent meaning the covering of the house. And think of it as black goat hair. One of the children, kaf bet bet, is the root for the word for stars. Now after that whole discussion, why would stars be tied to that?
It have to do with the opening when it dries out?
When it dries,
Can
because
you
you'd be
explain?
seeing black with little white dots of light,
Isn't
just
that
like
funny?
in the heavens.
of course, I was looking at the sukkah we're gonna build, and one of the rules is you're supposed to see the night sky and the stars in the sukkah.
Does it say that?
It's tradition, it's Jewish.
Oh, okay,
It-
okay,
it is
okay.
tradition.
Sorry, that's my mistake.
Right, I don't think there's
You know
a verse
me,
in the
I'm
Bible.
super.
You're right, but that
I'm
is the,
super.
that's
Yeah.
the Jewish custom.
Gotcha. Yeah, just like I need. What I need to do is do joint teaching with that man, so we can tie it together with the ancient Christian Christmas celebrations that used to happen earlier in the year and celebrated the birth of the Savior.
Did you
on
want
the
to
first
share
day.
something during sukkah? You want to speak?
I think it would be smart for me to join up with him
With,
because if with
Jonathan?
I have
Yeah.
something prepared and I'd love to go over.
because
with
he has
you.
a great Sukkot
Does it matter?
thing,
Do
and
you have a-
mine would be more.
do you have a? You want a tag team one night? What night would you? What's a good night for you to do a sukkah? Okay.
Let's talk about it.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're
Like,
just talking about
You
it.
talking about when? Yeah, during Sukkot.
During Sukkot.
whenever- Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get
I'll call
find
you.
out. But that
Y'all
would
want to do
would
that
be
tag team
wiser.
on?
Yeah.
We'll need to
Birthdays.
get together ahead of time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I have your number. We'll get together.
Yeah, let's.
Because I found the
invite you
ancient
over
Christian
in
celebrations.
an evening or two over to my house.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah,
You don't
it'd
even
be-
live far from me.
Very
so-
cool.
Yeah. But I think we should wrap it up there. I think
That,
that's actually a
that
good stopping
reminds you
point.
of Bar Kokhba. Hokba.
Yeah.
Bar Kokhba means the son of the star. That was the false messiah.
That would be-
in,
That-
yeah,
during
Bar
hate-
being,
that was a
yeah.
good-
during Hadrian's
I like
day.
Yeah, yeah.
My,
And you
Perfect
know where
Michael's right about.
you know where Hadrian's tomb is, where Castel Sant'Angelo is in Rome, Italy. They built a castle over it, a fortress, but it's where the popes go to if they're being attacked. They go to Castel Sant'Angelo.
Oh.
But they have statues of Hadrian, and Joyce took some pictures of me by his
Oh,
statue.
wow.
He's the one that built the Great Wall.
He did have a beard,
Yeah.
but he built the city a city over top the ruins of Jerusalem called Aelia Capitolina.
And he built a wall in Scotland to keep the barbarians out, I think.
Hadrian's Wall, and
Berbers, which are actually tied to insults for.
Okay, thank you. That's very interesting. I mean, Jewish traditions are worth considering, but you're right.
Yeah,
What does the
they're-
Bible say?
Yeah, that's what
The
I
Bible
always
doesn't
do.
say anything about
The
how to build
Bible,
it.
and I'll say
These
we
rabbis make
just
all
like
these rules.
he makes a lot of points that a lot of it's more about the reason behind it. He tells you to use goodly young trees because that's what you build a tabernacle with. Because he doesn't want you to build a shelter you return to every year. The point is to act as if you're on the run, say this openly, Martin, from the government, and you're having to survive in the wilderness and be protected by God and fed by God on the way. You're going to have to build tents out of small trees. He's telling you how to shelter yourself when the time comes, because it's going to come again.
and
That's why we
our
practice.
earthly tabernacles are temporary shelter until we have that heavenly spiritual body.